Welcome. I'm Dr. Beth Frates. Delighted to be with you today to talk about the state of the art behavior change. What a delight to be involved with the Mediterranean Lifestyle Conference in Crete. I am the president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, as well as assistant professor part-time at Harvard Medical School in the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehab at Spaulding Rehabilitation Hospital. One of my major passions is behavior change, both personally and professionally. I have some disclosures. I was on the scientific advisory board of Jenny Craig, as well as the medical advisory board of Obvious Solutions and Clearing.com. My main disclosure, though, has something to do with Crete. It has something to do with Greece. And that is, I am part Greek. In fact, my dear Grandma Rose, she came to the USA from Vassara. That is in the Peloponnese in Greece. And my grandpa, Peter, came with her. And they had an arranged marriage at the age of 18. They landed in East Boston. And they created a beautiful life together revolving around the spa, a Greek restaurant that thrived when they were young and had their kids. Everyone worked there. My grandpa did the cooking, and it was good cooking. And my grandma, she did a lot of the customer relations. In fact, she had her own booth there, and people would come in and ask, is Rosie around? And they would want to sit with my grandma in the booth, where she would listen and support and ask good questions and be very patient with them and provide them with the information they were seeking, with the guidance they were seeking, but most importantly, with loving kindness. And that kept people coming back just as much as the good Mediterranean Greek food that my grandpa was making. It was a dedication to others and to meeting the needs of others nutritionally as well as emotionally that kept this spa going. Their main goal was to put their children, there were 4 of them, my mom and her 3 siblings, through college. It was all about education, my grandparents. And that was their goal, and they met that goal through their hard work, dedication at the spa. They were patient people, and lifestyle medicine, counseling, behavior change, and coaching requires patience. And it's really rooted in gratitude, which is what Grandma Rose came to this country feeling, a great deal of gratitude, expressing gratitude for the sunshine, gratitude for the smile and laughter she would engage in with family and friends and customers at the spa. And this is the secret sauce of Greece, isn't it? Love and loving kindness. Learned this as a kid, know it now from experience, from our heart wisdom, from our head wisdom. And we're going to cover both heart and head wisdom in this talk on behavior change. And it is a journey. We're going to talk about the being of coaching with the coach mnemonic. Each one of those letters represents something that we need to be when we are in the coaching and behavior change space. It's the being of coaching. We're going to look at the science. We're going to look at the medical literature and health and wellness coaching, look at that data. Of course, we're data driven, and this is a CME conference. We're going to provide 5 steps that you can take right now to engage in behavior change counseling, the 5-step collaboration cycle. And that's the doing of coaching. We're going to do the being and the doing. We're going to review both in our time together. This is the science and art of behavior change. Love to share this with you. All about growth and learning. So, do you know anyone with a chronic condition? Silly question. 80% of people have a chronic condition that's lifestyle related. So you likely know someone, many people who have a chronic condition. It's a lot of lifestyle. And this gentleman here represents what happens when we have a chronic condition that is wrapped around an unhealthy lifestyle. And sometimes this is silent, as it was in his case for many years. At this time, you see him in front of Harvard Medical School with me. He's 72, but I'm going to bring you back to a time when this gentleman was 52 years old. Overweight, overworked, overstressed New York City businessman who dined almost exclusively on fast food. This man walked fast, talked fast, ate fast. A lot of times he did all three at the same time. So hamburgers, French fries, hot dogs, pretzels on the corner of the streets of New York City. This was his staple diet. He had some hard candies in his middle drawer at work. He loved cookies, especially Oreos, double stuff. He loved cakes and he loved pastries. In terms of the pillars of lifestyle medicine, there's nutrition. The stress was high. He took over his father's business and he was dedicated to these clients. In fact, his world revolved around this business and helping his dad's business thrive for a second generation. Social connection was connecting with the clients. He was married and had kids at this time of 52, but he wasn't fully engaged. He wasn't really present even when he was present in the house. His mind was at work with the clients. Now we talk about sleep. That was interrupted and short. Often he came home very late at night, would have some ice cream, cookies, go to bed, wake up an hour or two later, write a to-do list down, then go have some more chips and snacks that he could find in the cabinetry at his home. And if we think about our pillars, we're going to think about a big one here, physical activity. He was an outstanding athlete in college and high school. He played soccer and baseball and basketball. But at this time in his life, 52, he was sedentary. He sat. He sat at work, crunching numbers, talking to clients. He sat on the train home. He sat when he got home. He didn't do physical activity or routine exercise. He did something sporadically. You never knew what day it was, but you knew the exact time he would do it. 11:07 p.m. What might this man be doing at 11:07 p.m. precisely on random days of the week? Sprints, mad dashes from his office in Park Avenue to Grand Central Station. That was the only activity he had. And these were mad dash sprints. On one of these sprints, he got a little pressure. No pain, no gain, forged forward, made the train. By the end of the train ride, it felt like an elephant were resting on his chest, numbness and tingling down his left pinky and the middle of his ring finger. Diaphoretic, sweaty, short of breath, pale, uncomfortable. 11:37, wife picks him up. She's his school teacher, takes one look at him, speeds him over to the emergency room, where he completes his massive myocardial infarction and his right middle cerebral artery infarct, leaving him paralyzed on the left side. The day in the life of a 52-year-old gentleman who has unhealthy patterns. I'm happy to tell you that he made a complete recovery, except for fine motor movement of his left hand. He also made a complete lifestyle change. He worked with Pritikin and Whitaker. He and his wife went for 12 solid days to learn about healthy eating. They changed their plate around so that it had half fruits and vegetables, quarter whole grain, and a quarter healthy protein, learned about stress reduction, deep breathing, taking walks, went through cardiac rehab so he could exercise safely and regularly. He got a stationary bike and did that, stayed on that bike for 1/2 hour, 5 days a week. And I will tell you that I know this story so well, and I'm so happy about the outcome because that's my dad, and that's his life's story. And it is his story and him that inspires me every day to continue to do the work that I do in lifestyle medicine, and especially around empowering patients to adopt and sustain behavior change. In his case, he was afraid of another stroke and heart attack. But then it was love, and it was social support and connection with my mom, who wasn't a coach, but who was working with him day in and day out to help him adopt and sustain these healthy behaviors, which allowed him to enjoy the best years of his life, 27 years of his life, after his heart attack and stroke. So let's talk now about these big changes that I've listed for you on the slide. The unhealthy, the before, no exercise, standard American diet, eating pattern, which we know is connected with increased weight, inflammation, cholesterol, and increased blood pressure. Sleeping 4 to 5 hours, which increases ghrelin, lowers leptin, sets us up for hunger. Then no stress resiliency. He was stress eating, basically. Maybe there was some yelling I didn't mention. We know this increases cortisol. That can lead us to consume hyperpalatables, those foods that have salt and sugar and fat. And then the lack of real social connection and social support. Instead, he was connected to his clients and his work only, workaholic. Afterwards, that stationary bike was his savior because it increased brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which helps increase the number of neurons in your brain and the synapses, and in fact, the size of your hippocampus, which will help your memory. Lowers his stress, improved his sleep, and even increased his creativity. He moved to that whole food, plant predominant eating pattern, the Mediterranean style of eating. His sleeping improved drastically. He was able to sleep 7 to 9 hours. His work schedule changed from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So that helped his sleep and helped also lower his stress. In terms of stress resiliency, he learned about deep breathing, and he would take walks, sometimes with my mom, to reduce stress. And that helps lower the cortisol. These positive social connections that he engaged in and cultivated, these high quality connections with my mom, with me, with my brother, with his grandkids. He was a hugger after this heart attack and stroke. That releases oxytocin, makes us feel good, and lowers our stress levels as well. So this is a story, and sharing the story with patients can be helpful, especially those in pre-contemplation that feel like they're stuck and that there is no way to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to be hopeful, to see change. But if you share a story, especially people in pre-contemplation, no, I won't, I can't, I'm not going to change. Share a story. It's called dramatic relief. Let them see and feel the changes that someone else has experienced. This could help move them into contemplation, thinking about change. And then, of course, they get into preparation and then action and then maintenance. And that's how we want our counseling sessions to go. Assess the readiness, the stage of change, and then have an intervention that is stage appropriate for that patient. So coaching is very individualized. We need a lot of different tools. I'm going to give you that coach way of being, and I'm going to give you that 5-step collaboration cycle, that doing of coaching. And that hopefully will help you. So when you finish with me in this presentation over this next half hour or so, you'll be equipped to help empower people to adopt and sustain behavior change. So I do wonder right now if you feel confident and comfortable counseling and coaching people for behavior change. If you do, let's see if you can learn something new. If you don't, maybe you can take some notes mentally or actually physically with pen and paper or perhaps on your computer so that you can feel more confident and have some strategies for the next time you see a patient with a chronic condition. Now, you may be watching this and you may be in a position where you're the head of the cafeteria of a hospital or a school or a medical school, or maybe you are a faculty at a university or a faculty or dean in a medical school. Do you feel comfortable talking to others, other faculty members, people that are your superiors? Do you feel comfortable talking to them about healthy food? This whole conference in Crete, Mediterranean Lifestyle Conference, has been devoted to the power of healthy food and healthy lifestyles. So are you comfortable talking about it? Hopefully, you have gained a lot of knowledge during the course of this conference. And knowledge is power, as you probably recognize this quote and this person, Sir Francis Bacon, said. And going to conferences and listening to presentations is helpful and it is powerful. But information and education alone will not encourage lasting change in patient behavior. We need more. That's where this coaching and behavior change counseling comes in. Been fascinated with coaching ever since 2008 when I became a health and wellness certified coach, one of the first physicians to do so. I've taken 4 different health coach trainings since that time and been certified in motivational interviewing, learning more about acceptance commitment therapy and other ways of being and other strategies to help people in their change journey. Coaching fascinates me, and I'm all about the literature, right? As are many of you. The first time I found coaching in the medical literature was in 1892. Health coaching, a developing field within health education. It was in the Journal of Education in September of 1892. Well, there was just a few articles in health coaching for a long time until about 2010. It was 2008 when I mentioned that I became certified in health and wellness coaching, and a lot of other physicians started to really look into health and wellness coaching and started to write about it, started to research it. And as you can see in 2020, 2,143 articles were in PubMed. And these articles continue now, and the research continues. So we started with case studies, got to randomized control trials, got to systematic reviews, and we'll go over some of those together. It's important to know that even the American Medical Association got interested in health coaching about a decade ago. April 2013, health coaching can be defined as helping patients gain the knowledge, skills, tools, and confidence they need to become active participants in their care so they can reach their self-identified health goals. The familiar adage, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, and he eats for a lifetime, demonstrates the difference between rescuing a patient and coaching a patient. For chronic conditions, patients make the salient decisions every day. What will I eat? Will I exercise? Will I take my medicine? Patients with chronic conditions need to learn to fish. In Crete, this fishing analogy is very apropos. So I moved from this expert approach to this coach approach in my career when I got into lifestyle medicine and helping people to avoid the health setbacks that my dad had. And if they had those health setbacks, had a heart attack or stroke, or were struggling with controlling their blood sugars and had the diagnosis of diabetes, or struggling to control their high blood pressure, hypertension, maybe they had metabolic syndrome. My goal is to empower them so that they can manage these diseases through the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, through behavior change. Sometimes medication's needed. What we're hoping for is the lowest dose that is necessary and increase the dose, the frequency, the intensity of the lifestyle medicine pillar prescriptions. So moving from the expert approach, many of us in healthcare are trained in this expert approach. And we need this expert approach in acute medicine, acute care medicine, in the ER, when someone comes in for a heart attack and a stroke, or if their blood sugars are too high or too low. There are times when we need the acute care approach, and we take the expert approach. We follow the physician's agenda or the healthcare provider's agenda, treat the patient, educate the patient, rely on skills and knowledge of the expert to solve the problem, and the physician or healthcare provider strives to have all the answers and focuses on the problem that needs solving, and they advise the patient. Now, let's move to chronic conditions, not the acute care setting, not the ER, but chronic conditions. And here we follow the client or the patient's agenda. How do we do that? Well, we help the patient help themselves, help build motivation, confidence, and engagement. Rely on the patient's self-awareness and insights. Strive to help the patient find their own answers. Focus on what's working well and build on that. And collaborate with the patient and negotiate with the patient. This is a partnership coaching. So the expert approach. Again, think of someone coming into the emergency room, perhaps with pneumonia, cough, perhaps with a myocardial infarction. We examine that patient. We do x-rays or other radiologic testing, other lab work. We then figure out what the problem is and create a plan that's going to solve the problem. We need to explain this plan to the patient, often have to repeat it, and in fact, share it with loved ones, family members that are with the patient. We make sure that they understand the plan. This could be a lot of telling. Some may call this the tell approach, where we know the answer. We know how to save that patient's life. Remember, this is an ER acute care visit. And we are basically in sympathetic mode, fight or flight. We are in often life and death mode. And it's a race against time. And here we use this expert approach. What about these chronic conditions? We got to change entirely, put on the coaching cap, get curious. This is our mnemonic I shared with you. I told you we were going to have this, and here it is. The being. Be curious, be open. No shame, blame, or guilt in this room when we are working on behavior change and coaching. There's non-judgmental approach. We are appreciating any movement forwarded that has happened in the past, that's happening now, where the person, the patient, is looking and striving to adopt healthy change, either because of words they've expressed or the actions they've shared with you that are steps forward towards healthy living. And then compassion, working to really understand where the patient's coming from, where they are now, and where they want to be. Of course, as with every other dealing with patients, with people, we are honest. And it is this honesty that allows the patient to open up and be vulnerable. And that's when we get to the heart of the matter. In these health coaching, these behavior change conversations, where we're curious about the patient in front of us. We're open, appreciative, compassionate, and honest. And in this way of being, we are in the parasympathetic mode, the rest and digest. Take it in, understand it, be creative, be patient. This is what we need with chronic conditions. In this case, time's on our side. It took time for the patient to get into the situation they're in, and it's going to take time to change. Remember, an antidepressant takes 4 weeks to work. So if we're going to use exercise as an antidepressant, and there are studies that compare antidepressants to exercise, and that dose is 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity in the week, we need to give it time too, to give it 4 weeks. Change often doesn't really solidify until 90 days after repeating the behavior day in and day out. It is a journey, and it's a live and learn type of journey where we're using our experience and we're using our knowledge of the research as well as the patient. When we're in this counseling mode of behavior change and coaching, we're using the social brain. We're not just listening to the words, you're doing a review of systems with yes and no questions. No, we're open-ended questions. We're looking at the face of the person, looking into the eyes for their expression, trying to gather their mood. What is their body language telling us? What are we sensing from this person in front of us? And how do we do that? We must use the whole brain. Amygdala and fusiform area helps us understand feelings of the face. Medial prefrontal cortex and the superior temporal sulcus help us understand the mood of the person. Visual and auditory cortex, of course, to process sights and sounds. And when are we going to use this social brain? And when are we going to begin a conversation about behavior change? When the patient's experiencing challenges due to chronic conditions, when the patient's at risk for chronic conditions, when a patient's working on behavior change and expresses this to us, when we see an opening to put on that coach hat. I'm thinking about quitting smoking. Oh, put that coach hat on. Don't get an expert mode and start waving your finger. and wagging and telling them what to do. Put the coach hat on, get curious. What makes you say that? What are you thinking about doing? What has worked for you in the past? Think about curiosity, openness, appreciation, compassion, and honesty. So when? Yes, it can be in a clinic setting, it can be with patients, it can also be with friends and family, actually. You can use this coach approach. I use it all the time. You use it with students, use it with your parents, and use it with your children. So when a friend is talking about smoking cessation, a loved one who's talking about wanting to change their food intake, maybe wanting to learn how to cook Mediterranean style. Maybe a colleague is thinking about nutrition and their nutritional needs. Or maybe a child is working on their homework. These are opportunities to utilize this coach approach. And remember, this is not a wrestling match. It is dancing. So we are moving with the person in front of us. This is mom and dad years after the stroke, enjoying life and dancing. And it reminds me that we are responding to the patient, to their needs, to where they are at this time. And we are negotiating and collaborating with them, helping them find their way to their vision of themselves as a healthy human being, healthy body, peaceful mind, joyful heart. As they work towards that, we want to dance with them and empower them to adopt and sustain these changes. So a lot of this will be asking questions. Brings us back to Grandma Rose in her booth at the spa in East Boston, asking good questions, open-ended questions, and using our social brain when we are listening to the answers. So what are examples of good questions? I've already given you some. I'm going to really delineate them here. What makes you say that? When someone says, I'm thinking about quitting smoking. Or if someone says, I'll never quit smoking. Or if someone says, I can't quit smoking. Or if someone says, I can't eat healthy. I won't eat healthy. I can't exercise. I won't exercise. Instead of arguing with them, get curious, put on the coach hat. What makes you say that? What needs to be in place for you to make that change? Quit smoking, start exercising, start eating fruits and vegetables. What would life be like if you did make the change? What have you been considering with regard to the change? These are all good open-ended questions. Hopefully you're taking notes and writing this down. Are there bad questions, quote unquote? What's a bad question when we're coaching, when we're counseling for behavior change? Well, there are bad questions, and you'll recognize them. Why can't you just eat healthy? Now, this is shame, blame, guilt, and judgment. This is not the coach approach. There's no O for openness here. Are you ever going to eat healthy? Don't you know eating fast food can kill you? What's wrong with you? You may have heard these questions before. What's wrong with you? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel loved and accepted and energized and motivated and inspired? Does it make you feel resistant, sad, lonely, afraid? We want people to feel understood, loved, like they belong, like there's hope, like you're there to support them. So asking these questions won't get to that endpoint. We have the science behind coaching, meaning some research behind coaching. And you saw the articles with the explosion in 2010. Really, there was an increase in momentum for publication in the 2000s. Vail and colleagues put together a randomized controlled trial looking at cardiac patients. It was a coach approach versus control in 792 patients. And those in the coach approach had a significantly larger drop in cholesterol than those that were in the control. This was statistically significant. They wrote that up in an important article. Whittemore and colleagues looked at 53 women with diabetes and noted that those in the coach approach had better diet self-management, less diabetes related to stress, and higher satisfaction with care. Ruth Wolliver in 2010 did a randomized controlled trial with 56 patients who had type 2 diabetes and found those in the coach approach group had significant reduction in hemoglobin A1C among the subjects with a baseline greater than 7. Then Fisher and colleagues looked at 191 children with asthma, coaching both the parents and the children. Those in the coach approach had a decreased rehospitalization rate compared to controls. This has also got dollar signs behind it, money, reducing the cost of healthcare. Then Oliver and colleagues looked at 67 cancer patients. They had one visit with a coach prior to their visit with the oncologist, in which they were going to report their pain. So these were cancer patients with pain. Those that were coached noted a significantly improved pain severity score, and they were followed up months after their appointment with their oncologist. So this is important seminal research. And these randomized controlled trials surely are the gold standard in medicine. And when you have enough of them, you can do a systematic review of the state of the literature. In this case, there were 16 randomized controlled trials in coaching that were reviewed, and they were concluding that coaching is a promising strategy for health improvements. And there was a notable need for more research with specifications on the intervention details, needing a clearer definition of health coaching, and a consistency in reporting the behavior change techniques that were utilized in the trials. This was published in 2015. I want to call your attention to the right-hand side of the slide, where we're looking at different types of trials, animal laboratory studies, then there's case reports in humans and case series, maybe narrative reviews, expert opinions, and editorials. These can all help with an understanding about coaching. Yes, we want the gold standard of the randomized controlled trial. Sometimes case control studies, cohort studies can be valuable. These meta-analysis, this systematic review I'm reporting here on the slide, and the meta-analyses that have been done, very important. It doesn't mean we stop sharing our data, our own case studies and case series. And I would challenge you to think about, if you are expert in coaching and behavior change, maybe you have a patient story, a patient case that you could write up and share with our colleagues in the literature. Of course, clinical practice guidelines will come from an understanding of the problem and how it can be managed, and the meta-analyses help us to get there. So this is a case report that I wrote a year after the publication of that paper. And I call your attention to the BMJ case report 2016, Lifestyle Medicine Consulting, Walking Meetings for Sustained Weight Loss. Here, I was able to work with this particular patient and follow her for over 2.5 years. And she had a great desire to monitor her steps and her weight. So she did that on her own, and she shared it with me so that we could have graphics and she could stay motivated. This is also part of the journal paper, which shares the dose in which I met with her 5 times bi-weekly, and then finally a month after the last bi-weekly session, where she started at 157 pounds, then moved to 137 pounds and maintained that over the 2.5 years through change in exercise, in her eating patterns, her stress management, social connection. And by the way, this program and lifestyle medicine consulting, coaching, and behavior change counseling can impact not just the patient, but those around the patient. Her husband also lost weight and got into a healthy BMI. So this can have broad-reaching effects, even when we are working with one person. In maintenance phase, I had her be a mentor for others that were just starting in their journey, and that helped her stay inspired and feel engaged in her process and the behavior change journeys of others. So the literature continues, the research continues, and there are many reviews now, as I've shared in the slide, in this 2020 Ann and Song review of 15 studies of adults with cardiovascular disease. There was a significant effect on physical activity, dietary behaviors, management of stress, and health responsibility in those that were coached versus control. This report is on 2 studies with aging workers, which showed improved well-being based on physical criteria. From the next study of 9 research articles, a review of them, and the patients were those with chronic disease, coaching versus control, looking at the method of coaching. And in this case, or was it telecoaching versus face-to-face coaching the patients preferred? And in these 9 studies, the vehicle, the modality that they liked best was the face-to-face coaching. Now we have telehealth and we have video conferencing, and it'll be very interesting to follow this research on coaching to see if face-to-face is preferred versus a Zoom type of face-to-face. So in-person versus online, and how that will play out. A review of 12 studies on pharmacists. People are getting into coaching, not just physicians and nurses. All healthcare providers are interested in this pharmacist study. There were 12 looking at the pharmacist as coach, and this showed improved clinical and non-clinical outcomes for the patients that were coached versus control, usual care. Meta-analysis of 10 randomized control trials on patients with COPD. The coaching showed improved quality of life and reduced COPD hospital admissions. Another study reviewing 14 research articles, 2 groups, those in preventive clinical settings and rehab settings. In this, we see that 3 studies in the preventive and 3 studies in the rehab setting were showing statistically significant benefits for the coaching group, and the others did not. So not all coaching studies are showing statistically significant results, and we need to learn from those that are not showing improvement, and what was the coaching methodology there, in what population was not responding. So we can learn from all of these. Another review of 12 studies, including 1,038 cancer survivors, showed in the coach group improved physical activity, mood, and quality of life. And then this one here, review of 13 studies on adults with chronic diseases, showed improved weight management, increased physical activity, improved health status, physical and mental, in those that were coached compared to control. Dr. Wolliver has been a pioneer and leader in health coaching for many years. She was at Duke, now she's at Vanderbilt. And back a decade ago, she reviewed 284 studies that were available at that time to operationalize coaching. What does coaching mean? What does it entail? It's patient-centered, patient-determined goals, self-discovery, active learning, encourages accountability for behaviors, provides education and coaching, and it's just-in-time education that's personalized to the patient. And then there's a consistent ongoing relationship. You'll see this come in our 5-step cycle of collaboration in the doing of coaching, because our collaboration cycle is based on the research. Ruth Wolliver put together a coach assessment tool, so you can actually determine if the interaction, if the clinical encounter is consistent with health coaching. Here, it's long-term vision, designing goals and action steps, and having self-monitoring. That's consistent with health coaching. Using a self-discovery process, matching information to client interest and needs. That's a just-in-time education. And then having a client-centered mindful approach. We'll talk more about this mindfulness and getting into that parasympathetic mode, out of the sympathetic fight or flight, but into the rest and digest mode when we're coaching. And again, Ruth Wolliver, development of an observational tool to assess health coaching fidelity in patient education and counseling. So think, do you have a strategy in place for your behavior change or health coaching conversations, clinical encounters? If the answer is no, here is yours. Starting with deep breathing and mindfulness, getting into that parasympathetic drive by deep breathing yourself. This is going to entail the physician, the healthcare provider practicing self-care so that they can get into a space where they're fully present. Their presence is in the room. Their mind is not on the to-do list, on the Epic, on their EHS, their medical records, on their problems potentially in their own personal relationships or work relationships. No, it's centered on the patient. And it starts with empathy, then aligning motivation, building confidence, setting SMART goals, setting accountability. Step 1, be empathetic. 2, align motivation. 3, build confidence. 4, set SMART goals. And 5th step is setting accountability. It is a circle. And once you set accountability and you're going to see the patient again and check in with them, you start again with empathy. And empathy is so important. As you know from Nietzsche, we often refuse to accept an idea merely because of the tone of voice in which it has been expressed is unsympathetic to us. We know research has demonstrated that empathy can increase patient satisfaction. This increases connection and increases likelihood of follow-up and engagement. This is a journey. The patients need to be with us for the long haul, so we need to keep them engaged. Motivational interviewing helps align motivation. This is a collaborative, goal-oriented style of communication with particular attention to the language of change. It's designed to strengthen personal motivation for and commitment to a specific goal by eliciting and exploring the person's own reasons for change within an atmosphere of acceptance and compassion. If you're not familiar with motivational interviewing, I would recommend Motivational Interviewing, Helping People Change by William Miller and Stephen Rolnick, the creators of this style of interviewing. And these motivators are key in the process. And it's not the physician or the healthcare provider's motivators, no. It's the patient's motivators. What is important to them? What are their priorities? What are their values? What's their vision of themselves? What's their sense of purpose now? When we connect their priorities, their purpose, their values, and their visions to their goals, it helps them to reach their ultimate vision of themselves in the future as a healthy person with a healthy mind, a healthy body. We want physical health, mental health. We're going to get there by starting with the empathy, getting people comfortable and relaxed, then touching on those motivators and keeping those motivators in mind. Because next we're going to build confidence, set SMART goals, and then set accountability. And with these SMART goals, they're going to stick and they're going to be effective if indeed they're connected to the values and vision of the patient, their priorities and their purpose. Like this ladder here from this paper on collaboration, negotiation, the key to therapeutic lifestyle change. One side of the ladder, values and visions. The other side, priorities and purpose. Then the rungs of the ladder are these SMART goals. And what keeps people moving from rung to rung, SMART goal to SMART goal, week to week, is the motivators. That's why in this cycle, we're gonna tap into and touch upon the motivators. And those motivators may change over the course of the clinical encounters, months together with that patient. We're looking also to try to find intrinsic motivators. Extrinsic motivators are, I'll get $100 reward if I get my BMI into the healthy range in the next 3 months at work. So they could have workplace wellness challenges in place, and that could serve as a motivator, or a college reunion. I want to be able to look good for my college reunion and fit into these particular jeans, and that's a sort of an extrinsic motivator. But we don't judge. These are motivators, and if those are strong for the patient, great. Let's set those SMART goals. Hopefully, it'll become intrinsic motivators. When I exercise, I feel energized. When I exercise, I feel relaxed. I sleep better. I feel more creative. When I eat whole food, plant predominant eating pattern, I feel satiated through the day. I don't have highs and lows like I used to when I was having a lot of sugar and sweets. These sort of intrinsic motivators are the goal. After aligning motivation, we go to building confidence. At Spalding Rehab Hospital here in Boston, find your strengths, our motto. So as physiatrists, that's what we do. Lifestyle medicine physicians, this is what we strive for. And we need to ask these open-ended questions when we're coaching and having encounters around behavior change. So what questions? Here's one, open-ended. What are your strengths? Some people have trouble answering that question. So here's another exercise you can try. Think about a time when you were at your best. Tell me about it. They're likely going to talk about their strengths during that conversation. Another question you could ask, when did you achieve a goal you were striving for? What strengths did you use? How can you apply those strengths now? Strengths-based approach. Here are those SMART goals I talked about: specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-sensitive. I want to lose 20 pounds. This is a goal I hear a lot. It's a goal. It's not a SMART goal. Well, because it's not action-oriented, number one. So what might be a SMART goal that I move people to in the consultation process? I'm going to exercise for 40 minutes after dinner with my husband on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then I'm going to go for an hour hike with my dog and my husband on Sunday at a specific location nearby. Now that's a SMART goal. How about I will consume 5 servings of fruit and vegetable on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week? That's a SMART goal. So we need to work on these SMART goals because it helps patients be successful, and success breeds success. Then we need to set accountability. Can't set a goal and then have no one check in on it. So we need accountability. We are familiar with what gets measured gets managed by Peter Drucker, founder of modern management. What are we going to measure? Well, in lifestyle, it could be a number of things around the 6 pillars. It depends what the patient's working on, and it depends what they like. Do they like the wearable devices? Do they want their Oura Ring? Do they want a continuous glucose monitor? What is going to work for them given their goals and their preferences? Some are still journaling, old-fashioned logging. That's what I do, using the calendar and the pen and paper. Some people are using their pedometer, a heart rate monitor, maybe the scale, like my patient in the BMJ case series. And then blood tests with your healthcare provider, the timed mile, number of fruits and vegetables consumed, number of push-ups, maybe hours spent sleeping. And a lot of people are using these wearable devices for tracking. So really getting to know the patient is how we help with setting accountability. It's a 5-step cycle. So that means we start again when we see the patient, and we start with empathy. Before we get there, we got to take those deep breaths, got to get in a mindful state of mind, get our mindfulness, 5 senses ready for this clinical encounter. You know the steps now: empathy, motivation, confidence, goals, accountability. What is the ultimate goal of what we're doing here with behavior change counseling and coaching? We want the person to feel understood, motivated, supported, loved. We want them to be engaged and have hope. This is the coach approach, and this is the heart and soul of behavior change counseling. Getting back to the heart and soul, coming full cycle, full circle back to Grandma Rose, and remembering that good cooking is key, that good listening after asking good questions, dedication to the process, to the person, having patience for the journey, having gratitude to be on this journey. It's an honor to be able to walk with others on their journey of change. And love, exuding loving kindness. It all gets back to that secret sauce of the Greeks, love. It has been a journey and an honor being with you all for this half an hour presentation. Thank you for staying with me, and thank you for engaging.